Oh, hello. You came back? All three of you? Well, lots happened since you've been gone. This channel's really blown up. I got 5 subscribers. I'm just waiting for that League of Legends money to roll in. Or NordVPN. Right, should we crack on? I thought we'd visit some of the swamps of Tir Estron in this episode. In case you missed it in the first episode, Tir Estron is a large spiraled continent that disappears and reappears randomly on Earth. Nobody really knows where it comes from, although there are lots of theories. I was going to do like a big swamp monster at first, but I don't want to do monsters, I want to do animals. You know, the urge is to do a big T-Rex type of thing full of teeth. But, you know, you don't always want to do that. Sometimes you just want to look at a wacky bird. And look how wacky this thing is. It's obviously based on a heron, as you saw my reference. But I wanted this thing to be all gangly and awkward. I don't know if you've ever seen a heron walking around, but it looks like a drunk goose on stilts. Here we go, everyone's favourite part, digital sculpting. It's basically just me smushing around big grey shapes on an even bigger grey background. But we can do this, we can get through this, we can do it together. I'm just blocking up the big shapes at the moment, getting that big fat chicken body ready. Now I'm just stretching out those 90s style Kate Moss skinny legs. Here I'm using a curved fill brush to just block up this crest. So now I'm just adding some big chameleon eyes. Ugh, it's really starting to look like Anya Taylor-Joy. Do you think she can see what's directly in front of her? I wonder if she's allowed to drive. Now I'm just using the standard brush to get those eyelids in. I want a really organic, gnarly, bony shape on this crest, so I'm sort of just going crazy at the moment. And then I'll drop back later and make it look more like bone. I'm just adding these weird little Batman muscles. I've never had a muscle like this in my life. I mean, I have muscles. I am a man. Technically, I am a man. Thought I'd give this guy 6 nostrils. That makes the works after party much more fun. That was a reference to drugs. Don't do drugs. Make monsters instead. It's like drugs, but you don't gain any confidence. And you spend a lot of time on your own. Well, maybe it is a bit like drugs. Maybe just do drugs. Now if you feel like your life's going really well, you got everything together, feeling pretty content in yourself, try sculpting some feathers, bring yourself back down to earth. I sculpted about 3 different types of feathers, some longer flight feathers and then some shorter ones that go further up the wings, and I carefully placed them all one at a time where I thought they should go. After that I realised I didn't like it, so I moved them again, and then I moved them for a 3rd time. Once that was done I had a little crying shower and then I moved them for a 4th time. Now I'm just giving these feet a little bit of love, bringing out the musculature. Getting those gnarly knuckles in. Now just to save a little bit of time, I'm using some alphas to drag out these scales. Some of you might be thinking, but Lee, isn't using alphas cheating? Well anyway, now I'm sculpting in some flappy flaps. What kind of creature would this be if it didn't have flappy flaps to flap? Flaps. I think I've spent a little bit too much time on these flaps. Story of my life. I'm incredibly generous. Moving on. As it turns out, if you pluck anything it looks like a chicken. Now I'm just going to keep quiet for a little scale montage. On a scale of 1 to 10, you can tell me how boring it is in the comments. Wow, that was long. Did you stick around? Still with me? Cheers, boys and girls. Right, well, as this is a world building project, you might be wondering why I haven't spoken a lot about the world it lives in, the world of Tir Estron. That's because all that stuff comes at the end. And rather than lulling you to sleep with my velvety Welsh baritones, I thought I'd leave it up to the TFES, the Terra Foundation of Exploration and Science. Now, the Terra Foundation of Exploration and Science is an organisation that's been around for about 100 years officially, but a lot of people think it's been around for a lot longer than that. Now, their main job is to send manned explorations to Tir Estron and bring back as much information as they can. Unfortunately for them, most manned missions end in failure, and by failure I mean death. But it doesn't stop them from trying. Right, well, back to the sculpting. We're nearly done. I'm just doing the ruffles around his neck with a hairbrush, and I'm going over it with the clay build-up brush and the standard brush. And yeah, that's the bird done, apart from a little bit of posing. And we're on to the base now. I wanted him to sort of be standing on a dead tree, sticking out of some swamp water. I also wanted it to have sort of a fresh catch in its feet. I didn't really want to do a fish, I wanted something more alien than that, so I've gone for like an eel worm type of thing. We'll learn a little bit more about them later on as well. Now I'm just adding a couple of lumpy bumpy bits to the worm. It was looking a little bit too smooth. And I also add some extra branches to this tree because I didn't trust those birds' skinny legs to hold its weight, so they act as a sort of a support in the background. And lastly, for the worm, I added a sort of a spine down the back with the standard brush because it was just looking like a tube, like a cylinder. Didn't have a lot of shape, didn't look like it had any muscles. And now I'm posing the head as if it's noticed something in the distance, and that's it, we're done. Now I was going to show you just how time consuming it is to clean up a 3D print, but I got distracted by a spider. Now off camera I went over this with a nice light coat of grey primer. So firstly I went over everything with a nice light blue speed paint. I haven't really done a lot of painting in my life, so bear with me. Now I'm just going over any exposed flesh with a darker blue. These speed paints really are good, they take out a lot of the work. Can't forget that Steve Buscemi eye. Now this orange, this was a mistake. I knew it as soon as I put it on, but I was committed at this point. But that's okay, we all make mistakes. Just ask my wife. Now I'm just adding a little bit of navy to the feet. I used water then to just try and blend it up the leg and fade it away to nothing. Then I tried to ruin this thing even more by just adding a lot of that orange up the back. Ugh. And then with a thin brush, I'm just gradually adding more darker and darker blues towards the tip of the wing. Now, some of the more eagle-eyed among you might have noticed I've painted that beak a nice shade of bone. I think I look much better, don't you? Now again, with that skinny brush, I'm just travelling up the inside of the feathers with some titanium white. Actually, I don't know what white it is. Let's just call it white. Now I'm just going over that with a brown speed paint. Again, sorry, I'm not sure what shade of brown it is. They've all got stupid names, like aged turd or wooden teeth. This is that same navy that I used on the feet. I'm just trying to go over the tips of the crest and trying to make it bleed down into that bony colour of the beak. Now this was a gamble that paid off quite well. This thing was just looking very blue, so I wanted to bring in some more colours. So I dry brushed it with a light green, you could see there. Just over the areas where I thought the light would fall, picking up any high points like the brow. This worked really well on the brow and the eye. Kind of reminds me of those peacock cushions you get at your mum's best mate's house. No need to tell you what I'm doing here. Brown. Now I'm just dry brushing on a little bit of a greeny brown. This is a swamp after all. Gently. Gently. Oh, thank fuck. Now I'm just slapping down a pinky red on this little squishy boy. I really wanted him to stand out. There's a lot of green going on around him, so I picked the colour that was on the opposite side of the colour wheel. I think that works pretty well. It's like a bright, I'm toxic, don't eat me sort of colour. Now I just want to pick out some of those lumps and bumps. I'm dry brushing on a bit of, I think it was pink. I can't even tell, I'm actually quite colourblind, so this might look awful for all I know. Well, luminous pink wasn't interesting enough for me, so I've decided to jazz it up with a couple of black and white markings. I think they look quite good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Now finally on the bird, I just wanted to bring out some of those tiny details a bit more. So I've given it a very thin oil wash. If you want to know how to make an oil wash, you should watch my last video. Please! Now for an even swampier texture, I'm adding a bit of a green wash over areas where I thought rainwater would naturally travel, and then sponging it off. Now I got these tiny little bits of wood off Amazon, and I'm using UV resin to stick them on.
I don't really know what that is. Looks like it's very hard. I don't know if you know what it's like. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I'm half like that to keep this shit in. Cause I get really catatonic. And all I should be doing is a corner.
So you just gotta relax. If you clench, you'll never get it out. So anyway, I'm painting these vines green. I really like these vines. I think they give it a lot of life. Now I'm just using a bit of watered down PVA to glue on this mossy flock in. I did quite a lot of this, but I forgot to record any of it, so you're welcome. Now if you type fake moss on Amazon, you'll find loads of this stuff. I'm going to glue it on with some more UV resin. Now the idea with this guy is he's just been pulled out of a swamp, so he was looking a little bit too dry, so I'm just going to grease him up with a bit more UV resin. I like my worms like I like my coffee. Wet. Gently. Gently. Oh, thank fuck. So as I said earlier, this guy lives in a swamp. So what I'm doing here is just gluing on some acrylic walls to a little 3D printed base that I made off camera. I didn't really bother showing you because, as you can see, it's just a cube. And just to make sure I haven't got any leaks, I'm using a little bit of UV resin just to fill any gaps. Now I'm mixing up some 5-minute epoxy, otherwise known as 15-minute epoxy, to glue the tree down to the base. Once that's glued down, I'm going to use yet more UV resin to glue some reeds in. And once you've caught that, you've got it forever. Now I'm just giving the top of the base a little coat of green. I'm going to be pouring some resin on top of this soon, and I just want to give the impression of depth. Now I'm mixing up some epoxy resin. This stuff's pretty cheap. I wouldn't use it for anything deeper than a couple of centimeters. You need some specific stuff if you want to do a really deep encapsulating pour, because this stuff gets really hot and it'll bubble and crack and ruin your whole project, so just be careful. I'm using some Vallejo paints to pigment this. They're great if you want a nice murky translucent effect, but if you want something crystal clear but still have colour in it, you're better off getting some dedicated resin pigments. Well, I left that overnight to cure. It's come up pretty well. I'm just removing the walls. Top tip, if you're using hot glue for stuff like this and you're struggling to get it off, just brush some alcohol or some lighter fluid over it and it'll give right up. That water was looking a little bit still for me, so I'm just going to go over the top with some Mod Podge and add a little bit of undulation. just taping up around the waterline with the base because I plan on giving this a nice thick coat of black 3.0 because I'm a sheep and all everyone else does it. I wish I recorded the removal of the masking tape because it was the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. I thought I was finished at this point, but I came back the next day and just added a little bit of duckweed with a cocktail stick. Right, that's it, we're done. Just a quick message from the TFES and it's on to the glamour shots. Thanks for watching.
Standing at 91 to 137 centimeters with a wingspan of 167 to 201 centimeters, the great crested razor heron only weigh between 1.82 to 3.6 kilograms. Great razor herons will eat almost anything within striking distance of their long beak. While spiral worms make up a majority of their diet, these retoids stalk everything from insects to small fish-like creatures. Great crested razor herons are excellent fishers. These retoids can be spotted around shorelines and in shallow marshes, either slowly wading through the water or waiting patiently for their prey. Once their next meal is spotted, they will stretch out their long neck and freeze in place. When the moment is right, they strike with their blade-like bill. The combination of a negative lens and a positive cornea in the razor heron eye allow for accurate focusing by corneal accommodation. While sight is primarily independent in the two heron eyes, the eye that first detects prey will guide accommodation in the other eye. Contrary to the previous belief that razor retoids used stereopsis, both eyes, for depth perception, research has shown monocular focusing to be more likely. These retoids can survive and be found in almost any wetland habitat in Tir Estron. They are rarely found far from water. While some nests are built on the ground near a water's edge, great crested razor herons mostly nest in colonies in trees near water. These colonies are called heronries. These nests can be 100 or more feet off the ground and can range from 5 to 500 nests per colony. Brought to you by the Terror Foundation of Exploration and Science. We care.
Fuck.